Infinity Pool is from writer and director Brandon Cronenberg, the son of David Cronenberg and the mind behind Possessor. In my most anticipated list, I said a big part of my inclusion of it was because of his relation to the horror legend, but I probably shouldn't have said that. He shouldn't have to live in that shadow, and he doesn't. He's similar to his father, but he made his own style, and he's good at it. It's about a writer, played by Alexander Skarsgård, who goes on vacation to a beach resort in a fictional country with his wife, played by Cleopatra Coleman from The Last Man on Earth. And he accidentally runs someone over. By this country's rules, he must be put to death, but for an extra fee, they can clone him and just force him to watch as they execute the clone instead. And he meets Mia Goth and a bunch of other rich tourists who take him down a path of depravity that comes with not having to suffer any real consequences for their actions. It's like The White Lotus, but with more human cloning, stylized orgies, and random acts of violence. A bizarre horror story of human nature and entitlement taken to the extreme. This was originally rated NC-17, but was cut down to an R rating, thus saving our children from the horrible fate of seeing a slightly more graphic version of this graphic movie. Yes, this makes full use of that R rating for both sex and violence. It's a provocative movie full of style and horror. It has stylized artsy sequences, often involving sex, which actually made it so the movie put a seizure warning beforehand. Sure, wait until the epileptics already paid for a movie they couldn't watch. But despite these, it's rarely artsy, or at least not in that sense. It's more like your average horror movie from A24 or something, but with just a little more Enter the Void. It's weird, but it sure isn't boring. Skarsgård is good, but once again, Mia Goth steals the show. I really liked her in X and Pearl, and I really liked her here. She's great at playing that deranged, evil presence. In this one, she's more over the top, and I mean that in a good way. I didn't even know about her 2 years ago, and now she's probably one of the better actresses in the horror genre. I have not seen Cronenberg's first movie, Antiviral, but I think this one is a little better than Possessor and even his father's Crimes of the Future. And all of these movies got 3.5 stars from me on Letterboxd, and this one is also getting the same. Overall, this is an interesting, gruesome, sexy, bizarre, and well-acted thriller with social commentary.
Hold on to your ghosts, cause here come the spookiest, most spine-tingling tales ever to chill a bone. Delight and fright, shiver and shake, quiver and quake. Watch Scooby-Doo, Where Are You?
And now, for our feature presentation.
Velma is... Are you sick of hearing about this show yet? Everywhere you look, you see people talking about how bad this show is. For a long time, I was thinking about making a video about all the positive things about the show just to stand out. But as it went on, I felt like my comments in that regard weren't really that deep and I just sound superficial. It's not even guaranteed that this negative review won't suck because most of the things that could be said about the show have already been said. But I've already collected my thoughts, so I gotta at least put them to good use. First thing out of the way, this is a bad show. I don't agree with this being the lowest rated show ever on IMDB, but at the same time, it's not good. I was somewhat excited for this at first. An adult animated Scooby-Doo prequel? I'm in, but I became skeptical about it upon hearing more about it. Like the fact that it wouldn't have Scooby-Doo because it wasn't grown up enough. Yes, because this is a big boy show, and big boy shows don't have dogs in them, especially adult animation. Dude, there's a live action talking dog movie for adults coming out this year. When it actually came out, I heard that it was bad and decided not to watch it. But then I kept hearing that it was bad. Over and over. Hyperbolic statements about it being the worst thing ever, until after a couple of weeks I decided, I gotta see this for myself. And since after the first two there were only 8 half-hour episodes left, I decided I may as well finish it. Maybe I can make a video where I talk about the positives. It had already been renewed for season 2 before I started, so don't blame me for that. First off, let's talk about the positives. The real main positives. The first one is probably the weakest and it does not excuse any of the negatives, but I appreciate the diverse cast. If that statement upsets you, I don't care. They could have done more than just a simple race swap, but I appreciate the effort. And it has a great cast. A cast of people who deserve better than this. They have good chemistry with each other, and at some points their interactions almost make it seem like it's actually a good show. But then something happens to remind us that it's not. The rest of the show is mediocre to bad. Really the worst thing about it is that it just isn't that funny. There are a few laughs to be had here, but the majority of it is just mediocre. It feels like a Fox animated show that gets cancelled after one season. They make several attempts to be meta, but they aren't really that clever. A lot of it is just people acknowledging the tropes that happen. There are also a few attempts at social commentary, often on race or gender, but they mostly just come across as preachy or out of place, or both, Which is weird because I'm pretty sure the adult themes might be the main reason they wanted to make it for adults. I mean, they were more interested in that than they were in offensive humor. Seriously, accounts of how the show made them all edgy have been pretty overstated. There was that first scene with the cockroach sex and the shower scene and then the gruesome body, which I guess kind of blinded people to how PG-13 the rest of it was. There's the occasional violent image or drug plot and the short-lived recurring joke of Fred having a small penis, but those are fewer than I've been led to believe. I don't think anybody even said the F word at all. I think it might have appeared uncensored a few times in a song that played over a montage. Even the opening scene was tame compared to what I was expecting. The way people were talking about it, I was thinking they'd actually show full nudity. This show does not take advantage of the TVMA rating, so thank goodness for that at least. But anyway, the characters are really nothing like the ones we know and love. Don't get me wrong, I'm more than okay with them becoming their own things, but there's gotta be a line drawn somewhere. They have nothing in common with their counterparts. I really don't see any way that these people can turn into anything resembling who they are in the shows that supposedly take place after this. It feels like an original show that just slapped on the Scooby-Doo IP for cynical brand recognition. I wouldn't be surprised if that's actually what happened with this show. I mean, it kinda worked in getting people to watch it, although it would have definitely not been as hated if it was original. The worst thing to ever happen to this show was having the Scooby-Doo name. And these new versions of the characters aren't really that likable. Tragically, the lead character of Velma is the worst of them all. Shaggy's decent, Daphne's a mean girl but not an annoying one, Fred's probably the least unfunny character in the show, but Velma's just a smug, judgmental person. Yes, I know we see the beginning of her arc to overcome this flaw. Actually, we see that for a lot of characters. But still, for a lot of it, she's just kind of unpleasant to be around. Not the best way to handle a main character like that. The show's really at its best when she's realizing that she's too judgmental. There's one episode where she tries to make the popular girls less sexualized and then realizes that she's oppressing these women more than the system she claims is sexualizing them. And this episode, including its resolution, is one of the only successful attempts at social commentary in this show. But of course this wouldn't be Scooby-Doo without ghosts or mysteries. After all, the teaser trailer implied that it would be genre-bending.
They just learned you intend to make a genre-bending comedic origin story of Judy Jetson.
I wish this show could have been as genre-bending as the Jetsons reboot. This is just straight-up comedy, and for most of it they aren't even trying to solve the mystery. Although, to this show's credit, the ghost stuff isn't that bad. See, Velma apparently suffers from hallucinations in this one, and they always come up as some sort of creepy ghoul thing. And these scenes are actually well made, easily among the high points of the show. Probably the only moments the show feels like it's at least trying to capture the spirit of the original, or at least Scooby-Doo on Zombie Island. But for the most part, this is a bad show. You may be upset that they're making a season 2, but I really don't care because I'm not watching any more of this. Unless, of course, there's demand for another video from me, or that I hear it's improved a lot. I mean, they have to have learned something from this backlash. Maybe they'll bring Scooby into the mix. Although I'm pretty sure that they would have brought him back eventually anyway. This show could have been declared a masterpiece on par with The Sopranos or Breaking Bad, and they would still bring him back at some point. Even if it's just like a tease at the end of the last episode or something. But as of right now, Velma is a mediocre show ruined further by its links to Scooby-Doo. Tries harder to capture the spirit of a less edgy Family Guy ripoff than to capture the spirit of the franchise it's a part of. It's so misguided I couldn't even bother to make a video of things it did right.